There is a particular pleasure in being able to celebrate a double bat and bar mitzvah of a sister and brother here at the LJS this morning. Thea, your singing has brought us great delight and uplift. And Isaac, you read your portion with such accuracy and meaning. And for both of you, that underlines the importance of good Hebrew that is well taught and well learnt. And I think the mitzvah tutor, Dov, has just slipped out with your class, Isaac. And both of you as well focused on the essential messages of this important Torah portion from Leviticus. Although you learnt your Torah portion separately, it has been evident to me over these past few weeks how well you have worked together, how willing to share parts of the service last night and this morning, and how intelligently you have both written individual interpretations to this chapter. This morning's service has been both moving and impressive, and you are both a huge credit to your parents and wider family. And I want to thank you both and wish you both Mazel Tov on behalf of all of us here. The laws of this Torah portion, B'Har, as you know, are some of the most important in the Torah. And they're about ownership of land and how to protect those who are economically disadvantaged from losing their freedom and falling into abject poverty. Thea, the verses you read focus on the sabbatical year, the obligation that Israelites should let their fields lie fallow every 7th year. And it's interesting to note that this law is still observed in Israel, and in fact, this very year that we are in at the moment, 2021 to 2022, is a sabbatical year. And Isaac, the section you read about, is about protecting Israelites from permanent poverty and slavery. And both sets of verses allude to the Jubilee year, the 50th year, when lands which have been leased to others would revert to their former owners. The point here is that lands are not sold or mortgaged in perpetuity, but merely leased for a period of no more than 50 years. And underlying the whole parasha, on which these agrarian and ethical laws are based, is a theological statement that comes in verse 23, just between the passages you've both read. Ki li haaretz, ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. For the land is mine, you are but strangers resident with me. What this means is of immediate relevance to all of us in our own time. We do not have absolute ownership of the land on which we live. We are tenants, lessees to the leaseholder, who is God. And just as tenants are required to look after the property which they lease from their landlord, so are we required to care for the earth on which we have been placed, and to replenish what has been taken and repair what has been broken. 17 years ago, in 2005, liberal Judaism, together with other organizations globally, joined together to support a movement and campaign which was called Make Poverty History. Its aim was to raise awareness of global poverty and to pressure governments into taking actions towards the aim of ensuring that nobody should live in absolute poverty by the year 2030. The Jewish coalition of Make Poverty History, drawn from nearly every charitable and religious organization in the community, made their way up to Edinburgh, complete with white kippot, bearing the insignia, Make Poverty History, for an unprecedented campaign on Shabbat on July the 2nd, 2005, under the banner of the words from Deuteronomy, Tzedek, Tzedek Tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue. 10 years after the campaign in 2015, there was optimism that the goal of eradicating worldwide extreme poverty was making headway. But as we emerge from the extraordinary circumstances of the pandemic over the last 2.5 years, and with the war in Ukraine affecting world security and the global economy, the future does seem bleak, and we seem to have taken a backwards turn. Make Poverty History, disbanded in 2006, seems sadly to have become history itself. The slide into debt and destitution in our own country demands renewed campaigning and actions to make poverty history for the families and individuals who are living in some of the most economically and socially deprived areas in Britain. My colleague, Rabbi Eli Tikva-Sarah, in her commentary on this week's Torah portion, comments on 2 key words that are found in the verses you both read, Thea and Isaac, Yovel and Doror, conventionally translated as Jubilee and Release. But look more closely, she says, at their primary meanings, and we see that Yovel comes from a Hebrew word meaning to conduct or bear along, and as a noun, stream or produce of the soil, while Doror, in the verse, you shall proclaim Doror, a release in the land, comes from a Hebrew root meaning that which runs freely or flows. So both words have to do with freedom of movement, with flowing freely. There is a great contrast between this image of the sabbatical and jubilee years and the free-flowing equity that draws people out of poverty and slavery on the one hand, and the restricted austerity that causes destitution and poverty on the other. Jewish texts such as these teach us so much about how we can eradicate poverty, as well as the connection between the climate emergency and poverty, for the two are inextricably connected. How we are in our society, how we achieve equity and well-being for all people must be based on the fundamental theological principle that ownership of the land is not ours, for we are merely strangers, resident with God, and societies have to create a free-flowing distribution of wealth and a powerful sense of responsibility that compels all of us to prevent any further decline of sections of our population from becoming destitute. It is a little unusual, as you intimated, Thea, for a person to celebrate their Kabbalat Torah before their Bat Mitzvah. These ceremonies have fallen within 3 weeks of each other, and in both services, you have demonstrated your intelligence, your grace, your curiosity, your love of Judaism, and the philosophical questions that it raises for you. I am delighted, as are all the staff of Rimon, that you are returning now as a teaching assistant. You have a gentle and lovely personality, and your interest in so many different subjects, including mythology and poetry, and your experience of assisting your teachers with students who are learning to do trapeze, will endear you to students and teachers alike. And Isaac, it has been my pleasure to get to know you in Class Het this year and see you grow in confidence. I am so sorry that your passions, PE, games, and DT, are probably out of arm's reach at the moment. But I hope that as you have prepared for today, there has been some distraction in your life. You applied your smart, analytical, and mathematical mind to understanding the details of a complex and detailed Torah portion. I congratulate both of you and wish you both well in all your endeavors in the future. Amen.